YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage coming to you from Marbad's tomb with a viewer, which is Uinta there, and he's playing against, well, I didn't catch his opponent's name, we'll see it at the end. So he sent me this replay of Dwarves vs. Chaos, and it's a pretty fun replay. Let's take a look at the armies. He's got a couple of gyrocopters with brimstone guns, a front line of dwarf warriors backed up by a whole crap load of miners with blasting charges, 2 hammers, 2 artillery pieces, 1 organ gun, 1 great cannon, and then there's Mr. Ungrim Iron Fist supporting his troops. There is a melee specialist on a manticore here, which is a pretty nasty looking creature. Look at him, he follows the camera too. I never noticed that before. It's like his head was following the camera. That's pretty creepy. So the main chaos leader though is a death wizard, and there's like 5 or 6 Forsaken, and at least that many Chaos Marauders. And so the Chaos Marauders are going to roll forward. The Forsaken are going to be used as a second line. The Brimstone Gun Gyrocopters are picking away at the Exalted Hero, which is a melee specialist. You don't see them very often from Chaos players. Here comes the Chaos Marauders. They're going to meet the front lines for the Dwarves. And part of the Dwarf plan is to sacrifice their own Dwarf Warriors, apparently. Woo! There are going to be some nasty explosions. So check this out. We can watch our frame rates tank. But yeah, you can see the blasting charges being thrown in, killing both Chaos and Dwarf alike. And I think that the Dwarf player was just hoping that this would damage the Chaos Infantry enough that he might be able to have a mop-up operation. If we take a look at Ungrim Iron Fist, he is perfectly healthy right now, but he's about to get hit by a Spirit Leech, no doubt. That's exactly what happens. And unfortunately, the Dwarf Lords, which you would think would be pretty darn resistant to magic, really aren't. And Spirit Leech is a little bit random now, like that one didn't do a whole big bunch, but it can still do a lot of damage. And speaking of damage, here comes the Hammerers. Once the front lines of the Dwarves start to waver in the face of all the Forsaken, the Hammerers are brought in last, which is interesting. These big damage dealers are going to come in late in the game and be able to themselves deal a ton of damage to the Chaos units, though the Dwarves are facing a huge mob of Chaos troops. You can see them all across the line here, and the Dwarf line is pretty thin in terms of numbers. Ungrim is being Spirit Leeched to death. He's getting rather dead. He's not dead, because the Dwarves do have some resistance, fortunately for them, but it is not unlimited. The Chaos Manticore is out here chasing off some troops, and there's a Chaos Giant that I failed to mention earlier too that's just taking some cannon fire, which is definitely good by the Dwarves. It staggers them and allows the infantry to do more damage, and the Manticore now taking a couple shots as well. So the Manticore is going to come back in, and again the Dwarf line's in pretty rough shape, only being held up by the Hammerers. You can see that there is some Chaos starting to push through here. A few Hammerers ready to stop them though, and the Forsaken have gotten to the organ gun over here. Looks like there's probably a Fate of Buna inbound here. Indeed. That's bad news for the Hammers. And right here comes a fight where the Slayer King is faced with a whole bunch of Chaos units, including the Death Wizard himself. The Death Wizard's being fired on by gyrocopters. Ungrim's still taking one Spirit Leech after another, but being the Slayer King, he knows he knows not fleeing, and you'll see that he is really dishing out the damage here. And I believe the Chaos... No, yeah, here's the Death Sorcerer. He's still running around trying to kill these Great Cannons. Ungrim's going to come fight him, but here comes the Manticore as well on a quick hit and run. Look how hurt Ungrim is. He's extremely hurt. Down to 592. At this point, though, I believe the Death Sorcerer from Chaos actually kicked the bucket. And now it's going to be a fight between the Manticore and Ungrim. Ungrim is in really rough shape. He's down to like 200 hit points, and he's fighting this Manticore. Let's see whether or not the Slayer King in front of Marbad's tomb here can vanquish such a fell beast. Now right here where this Manticore lunged out and hit the artillery, actually gives Ungrim a swipe on it that actually makes the Manticore rout. So very fortunate for Ungrim when that Manticore made a leap at the cannon unit behind it. And this has caused a morale problem for the rest of the Chaos Army. So even though the Dwarves had taken massive losses, you can see their troops, barely anything left. This giant was hacking away at them. The dwarves were taking huge losses, but the leadership for the dwarves is just more solid. Chaos had no answer to the gyrocopters. They have fired continuously throughout the battle. You can see the cannons knocking big chunks out of this Chaos giant. Pretty sweet effects with the blood effects. Honestly, I do like them a lot. The Chaos Manticore comes back for one last run at Ungrim, trying to kill him. But the Slayer King somehow manages not to die, which is honestly pretty incredible. He's down to 17 hit points. So he survived, I think, 2 Spirit Leeches and quite a few attacks. So kind of nice to see the Dwarf Lord actually survive all the Spirit Leeches to get into combat. Pretty close fight between Chaos and the Dwarves. And I would expect relatively close fights between these two factions. Believe it or not, like I'm not saying that the Dwarves are a stronger faction, but part of me almost kind of feels like that they have a few more tools than Chaos, which is saying something, because the Dwarves don't really have a whole lot of offense, but it's partly because Chaos just has no real good answer to the gyrocopters. In my mind, I don't know if the Manticore could catch the gyrocopters, and that's one of the real struggles for Chaos. Fate of Buna is their only answer, really, to the gyrocopters. Otherwise, you just have to sit there and take it and try and kill the rest of the dwarf army quick enough. I kind of think here that money may have been better spent potentially on some cavalry for Chaos. I know their cavalry is very expensive, but the dwarves have a particularly difficult time stopping it. Could be wrong, though. I don't know. The large numbers here very, very nearly overwhelmed the dwarf force. And in the end, it was really the leadership that carried the day for the dwarves, whereas the leadership for the Chaos Marauders is pretty bad. It's pretty decent on Forsaken, but they don't have a ton of men in the unit, and once they start to take some damage, you know, like any other unit, when they get down far enough, they suffer pretty big morale penalties. The Hammerers here were absolutely hammering Chaos units. Both of them, one of them a little over half health, one a little under, but both over 100 kills, which again, in Total War Warhammer, that is a pretty solid number of kills. And even some of these dwarfs with blasting charges, I mean, the number of kills here, 44, 50, 47, those are all very decent numbers off those units. Very decent. Hope you all enjoyed this one. I appreciate my viewer, Yunta, sending it in. Appreciate him watching and the support that he's given me. And hopefully this was fun for him to see his video here. So what do you all think? In a match between Dwarves and Chaos, who do you favor? And depending on which one you pick, tell me why you like that faction and kind of how you use them to beat the other. I like the Dwarves versus Chaos matchup. I think it's pretty fun. HeirofCarthage signing out for now.